Alrighty, folks, we're just going to jump in, but thank you so much for coming. This is our first webinar. Today we'll be going over how to work with Rhino, Grasshopper, a little bit of Touchdesigner, and Foveate. So, go to the next slide here. Here's the agenda for today. We're going to do a quick overview of Foveate, and we'll jump into some Rhino and Grasshopper, a little bit of Touchdesigner, then eventually we'll have a Q&A, and you can ask us a bunch of questions in the chat. I'm Ki-tae Kim. I'm one of the co-founders of Foveate. My background's in architecture and experiential design. So a lot of the product of Foveate is informed by my experience working on Archimedia installations, interactive installations at museums, galleries, touring, and then permanent installs as well. Ian Petrarca will be managing the chat. He's the other co-founder. Ian's experience is also similarly in experiential, more in things like theme parks. He's worked on some of the largest theme parks in the world, like Cartoon Network in Dubai, installations in permanent lobbies and things like that, executive briefing centers, so on and so forth. So a quick overview of Foveate. Foveate is a 3D presentation platform built for architects, designers, engineers, technologists to all be able to have one source of truth that they can visualize and build around. It's kind of a Frankenstein baby of Google Slides and Enscape, or Google Slides and Unreal, something like that. The idea is with Foveate, you can take your CAD files from apps like Rhino, SketchUp, Revit, 3ds Max, Vectorworks, be able to combine them with other kinds of media, let's say renders from Enscape, renders from V-Ray, videos, let's say from Touchdesigner, if you want to simulate content, screen content that's on LED walls or projectors, and then be able to create camera points of view in space that you can annotate and walk people through, just like a slide deck. So with Foveate, people make interactive presentations, digital twins, and virtual walkthroughs. And the whole idea is, instead of having all this information scattered in different places, we have a single source of truth using the 3D that we work in every day that everybody can intuitively walk through and understand what we're all trying to build together. So it doesn't matter what media format somebody has their work in. The idea is that everything that you would normally put into a slide deck presentation can now be anchored contextually into a spatial model, and then everybody can have visibility into the project. Doesn't matter if they're the architect, designer, technologist actually working in the 3D, or if they're a PM, a manager, director, producer who is overseeing the project that maybe doesn't usually have skills in the 3D, but they would get a lot of benefit from understanding what's happening. And then finally, clients and stakeholders, possibly the most important decision makers on a project, who oftentimes have zero technical knowledge, that have all the power in the project and need to be able to have the 3D information in order to make decisions better, faster, more clearly. The problem that Foveate's really trying to solve is, how can we communicate spaces more intuitively? So for example, right now, we've only been communicating spatial experiences via slide decks, so mostly PDFs, and then 360 tours became a thing. But the thing is, when you have all these disparate pieces of content in drawing form, where clients don't really understand scale, and they can't really see the the space from the plan drawing, for example, and then renders, which are not always the most realistic. For example, this Allbirds installation, they are more like collages than they are paintings, or than they are spatial experiences. And then finally, things like technical drawings, which a very few select group of people can actually read and understand what they're trying to convey. So for Foveate, we're trying to answer the question is, how can we build better? How can we communicate our creative ideas in a more intuitive, faster, and easier to update way? So for the benefits of using Foveate, we want people to have a more cost-effective way of communicating their designs. So instead of producing PDF slide decks, where generally people will spend 20 to 60 hours creating a PowerPoint or Google Slides deck, most of that is just spent formatting. They can use Foveate to easily create a 3D presentation right from the CAD that they're already working in, and then easily update that as they go on. So we know that creative folks like yourself work very iteratively, and need to be able to update their work quickly. I remember when I was working in experiential design, we'd have all sorts of changes last minute. And in order to update your InDesign deck, right, you now have to take all your renders again. You have to replace all the links with the same exact names inside your InDesign folder. And then you have to export your PDF, probably go to smallpdf.com, optimize and compress that, and then finally send that and show that to the client. Nowadays, all this work is remote, and people are still only able to present with basically screen sharing that's always choppy in Google Slides. So we're really trying to help people there with how can we help architects, designers, technologists work remotely and asynchronously. So with Foveate, you can drag and drop all your materials in, create your interactive presentation, invite your team members and clients, share it on a link, and then people can check in on it when they have time. So trying to be more efficient with how we're sharing ideas and working around everyone's busy schedules. And then another thing that we really are trying to do with Foveate is help you express your ideas more creatively. Architects, designers, technologists, you are the most creative people working on the most ambitious projects, things that no one's ever seen before, right? So they can be very difficult to understand. By using the 3D and walking people through it like as if you had built a physical model and handed it to them, we want to give everybody an intuitive experience that they would have had had we been 3D printing a model or something like that. And them understanding it is what allows them to fall in love with it and push forward on the design. And then finally, with Previz and pre-design in general, that's kind of where all the work needs to happen. And then you can reduce all the pains that would happen on site later once these decisions are made. So the idea is with something like Foveate, you have a sandbox where everybody can test ideas and talk about what's going to happen. And then later, once things actually get to site, down the line in a couple of months or even years, then all these problems have already been foreseen, and we can reduce the change orders and crazy changes, last minute changes that might have to happen on site, which are usually the most expensive part. Because Rhino is PBR based for its materials now, especially Rhino 8, the support is really good. You can do some pretty cool things with materials. So I'm going to delete this curve here. But these are LED battens from Seiko. So each one of these yellow cubes here is an LED that I've modeled based upon a spec sheet that I got from them. We use Seiko on many of our projects, but they are a very premium LED manufacturer, uses Japanese LEDs, and then Video DMX, meaning that these LEDs are being addressed by video rather than like RGB signals or values. So you can basically be able to project the video onto any of their LED hardware and use that to create really awesome animations. So they're very popular in Archimedia, like when you see the New Year's celebration on the Burj Khalifa, that is Seiko. So stuff like that. Now if we jump into rendered view again, you can see what this looks like. I've gone ahead and for these LEDs, create an LED material that has a kind of yellowish color intensity at 10. So what that intensity does is kind of mysterious in Rhino because you can only view it, I believe, in ray traced mode. It tries to create some global illumination and simulate the LEDs, but honestly, Rhino's rendering is not amazing for that. We'll just jump back out here, set this to rendered. And then we'll go select everything, go File, Export Selected. And then we'll call this Chandelier 3. Save this guy. Yes. And we'll go back to Foveate here. And this one, here we go. We can drag and drop this guy right into Foveate. So This one's going to take a little bit longer to render because Foveate's optimizing this, and I made this scene in a kind of a not a great way where these battens are not they're not blocks, which I probably should have done. And for those who are familiar with blocks, blocks are basically how you instance objects in Rhino. So this way you're not using a whole bunch of memory making unique copies of every single thing. Instancing takes one reference copy and then it updates it for everything else. So like what I probably should have done is created one of these lines of battens and then use blocks to instance it out 18 times, but I didn't do that. Be better than me. But now we have the chandelier here in Foveate rendering beautifully. We can turn off the grid again because we don't really need it. And then we'll go ahead and turn this background into, let's say, a nighttime scenario because LEDs look great at night, not so much during the day. Find one of these that, ooh, that looks nice, fits our vibe. And because we've gone ahead and used a physically based metallic material for these battens, you can see they have a shine and roughness to them, this kind of beat up texture. So this is pretty indicative of what these would look like after a couple of months outdoors. And then we can go ahead and change the rotation, let's say, of these things, of the HDR to reflect on the beams and the battens because we want them to look a certain way. And because we use that emissive material with intensity inside of Rhino, we can utilize that in Foveate by turning on bloom. The threshold here changes basically the limit that the intensity has to be in order to be affected by bloom. So because we set emissive intensity in Rhino to 10 on our material here, it's 10, that's over 2, so it will be affected by the bloom. And then we can increase the intensity of the effects because we want them to glow more, increase the radius, what have you. So now we're able to simulate this emissive intensity much better. And I'll show you a final scene, a finalized scene that was utilizing this asset. So this was a part of a real project that we did. This is for Metropolitana in Mexico City, which is in Puerto Polanco. So if we go here, this is Reflejo Peatonal by Rafael Lozano Hemmer. And this was an animated facade. Where's Rafa? That would take people's silhouettes from a camera down the street, and then it would animate the facade using these Seiko LEDs as they walked across. And then on the underside of the building, we had this custom chandelier that Rafa made as well that does the same thing, but tracking people within the space. I believe this is using an Intel RealSense camera, and as someone moves around, their silhouette appears on here in this sort of low-res manner. So as you can imagine, something like this is pretty difficult to communicate in a slide deck. You basically can't do it. So I was the one who was responsible for animating these via Unreal. But this was years ago, and I really wish that I had a tool like Foveate at the time to be able to explain this better. So now with Foveate, we're doing the same technique with the video material. I went ahead and modeled all these battens in Rhino, and then just did a simple project from view on the UVs in order to get the correct mapping. And then we can animate the facade just like that. So we've built a digital twin now of this project that was pretty simple to make and shareable everywhere. And someone has all the information about the site. We were able to take this giant model from the architects. So they were using a Revit. So in this case, they sent us an IFC model. And then we were able to compress and optimize that and then utilize that in Foveate. And because we have things like this real-time post-processing and ambient occlusion, we don't actually even have to really apply materials to this city model, right? I think it looks great even without it. And we have the chandelier now visible inside of this scene as well. And because this chandelier asset and the main architecture are two different models, we could go ahead and adjust this. So if we wanted to say, oh, this would really look great, rotated more. That's super easy to do right in Foveate, and just updates instantly. And then we have our scale figure here, May, who really gives it some nice scale. So you can kind of understand, oops, let me pick May here, how big it is. So there's May. Oh, she's a little bit too low. You can always scroll inside of any of these values in order to adjust them by smaller increments. We have May, so we could go here and see what this artwork looks like from her perspective. We'll go ahead, create a moment here. We could call this, we'll open up the FOV, call this May's view. And then we'll go ahead can rotate May a little bit. And jump back to her point of view. Okay. Now we know exactly what this looks like from her point of view. And then if we go to, let's say, a moment about the Seiko product, here I've gone ahead and I attached the PDF of their spec sheet. So I'll show you exactly what that looks like. But if I go into this description, you can see that in the moments I have picked a PDF that I uploaded to be here. So if someone clicks the PDF icon, now they can view the full PDF of this product and be able to understand exactly what it does. So here with the photometrics, we had the spec sheet about the dimensions, the pixel pitch, everything that someone would need to understand exactly what product we're using here and how it actually fits into the project. They can download it, what have you, and then link out to the actual product on their website. Key takeaways from this webinar. So with Foveate, what we really try to do is create an interface that's very intuitive. So with Foveate, you don't have to learn how to code. You can just use your 3D and CAD files, video files from Rhino, Grasshopper, Touchdesigner, Revit, ArchiCAD, SketchUp, Blender, 3ds Max, what have you, and be able to create a 3D presentation that's easily updatable without really a steep learning curve. It's actually very simple. We designed everything to be drag and drop and very easy to use, just like PowerPoint. But you don't have to worry about formatting and kind of all like the busy work that comes with making a slide deck. With Foveate, we really want to help people communicate their creative ideas better. So Foveate is designed to be a more immersive experience than a 360 tour or a regular PDF slide deck, right? It's supposed to have all your 3D, your CAD, your videos, could have audio, your renders, and your PDFs all inside of one spot that give people full context to a project. So instead of jumping around from file to file to file and them having to sort of assemble a total vision in their head, it's all in one place. All the media is in one place. You can easily replace any of the assets that are part of your project, and they're just in one link that always stays the same. And then Foveate has all the roles and permissions so that you can keep projects organized. Only certain people need to be on certain projects. Not everybody needs exposure to it. This is a good way that people can be editors and viewers, and links can be kept private until you're ready to go public and show them publicly to people, whether that's through marketing and press, biz dev, what have you. And then Foveate's shareable everywhere. So the idea is that nobody has to download an app anymore in order to view a 3D experience. These days you kind of need an app even to open a PDF really well, and sign it, stuff like that. So we really want to move away from native apps in that sense and make sure that Foveate scenes are shareable everywhere to every device. Doesn't matter if you're on Mac, PC, Android, or iPad, you can just send a link and someone can open a scene on their device and start viewing it in a few short seconds. You can send a link in your favorite chat apps like Slack, Microsoft Teams, email, embed them into websites, what have you. And that link always stays the same unless you make a new scene. But yeah, thank you everybody so much for coming to this webinar. This is our first one, first of many. Really great to have you all here. I hope I answered all of your questions. Please feel free to email us at team@foveate.com if you have any more questions, or if you go to our website, you're welcome to request a demo or meeting with us. You know, we can give personalized demos to certain companies, you know, more tailored to your use case and things like that. And also, we have a 14-day free trial now. So we've opened up Foveate so that anyone can just sign up and try it out, and you get access to it for 14 days for free. And try it out to your heart's extent, and let us know what features that you would want, or maybe what funky use cases you have.